Hey everybody, so it's Dallas Stars time with season previews. Dallas has missed the playoffs the past 2 years. They just signed Tyler Seguin to a long-term contract, 8-year deal. This is a team that really needs to show something this year. I think they need to make the playoffs this year, but when you look at their lineup, it's really difficult to see them doing it. They have a new coach in Jim Montgomery, replacing Ken Hitchcock, who retired at the end of last year. This is now their third coach in 3 years. They're a team that expects to make the playoffs, should be in the playoffs, yet somehow just seems to be missing something. They've got great goal scorers. They have a decent defense core. They have their goalie in Ben Bishop, who's supposed to be a franchise goalie, and something just seems to not be clicking with this team. This is a big year for them. I think they really need to show something this year, or there are going to have to be even more changes made, and they've already made a good number of changes. But anyway, let's look at the lineup and see what we got here. Top line, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and Alexander Radulov. That's a line that should be able to produce a lot of points. Second line, Janmark, Spezza, and Como. Como coming in from Colorado. Third line, Nichushkin, Radek, Faksa, and Tyler Pitlick. And the fourth line, Remi Elie, Devin Shore, and Brett Ritchie. Defense. Lindell and Klingberg is your top pair, Methot and Johns is your second pair, and then Hetherington and Polak your third pair, with Ben Bishop in goal and Anton Hudobin backing him up. Your extra forwards are Jason Dickinson and Gemel Smith. Gemel, I don't know how you say it. Gemel Smith, I'm not sure, but he played a number of games with them last year. And then Julius Honka is your seventh defenseman. He'll probably get into the lineup at a decent amount, and you're going to see all him and the two bottom pair defensemen, Hetherington and Polak, all probably cycle in and out of the lineup at some point. But anyway, what do we have here with Dallas? Because we have a team that should be making the playoffs, they themselves expect to make the playoffs. Their fans expect them to make the playoffs, but they play in a very difficult division, and they haven't made the playoffs the last 2 years, which has been an issue because they think they should be a playoff team. If this team played in the Pacific Division, they'd probably make the playoffs this year, but they don't. They play in the Central, which is significantly more difficult. And in a division where you already have Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minnesota, Colorado, who made the playoffs last year, how is this team going to squeak into the top 4 or even the top 5 if the Central ends up sending 5 teams to the playoffs and the Pacific only 3? How is this team going to sneak into the top 5? Chicago, I'd say, is probably in the worst shape out of anyone in that division, so let's put them last. They're not a playoff team. But after that, Nashville should almost be a guarantee to make the playoffs, as should Winnipeg. St. Louis added a ton this offseason. You've got to think that they're going to the playoffs. So there's 3 teams right there. Then you have Minnesota, Colorado, and Dallas. In Minnesota, they've made the playoffs. They can't get out of the first round, but they continuously make the playoffs. And they have had a couple of really good seasons in a row now. Colorado burst out of nowhere and had a great season last year. I think there's a good chance they don't have that type of season again this year. But then Dallas, who is Dallas going to knock out of a playoff spot? When you have Nashville, Winnipeg, and St. Louis almost guaranteed spots before the season even starts. There's 3. So that is 1, maybe 2 spots. Now, Minnesota, I'm thinking, is probably a playoff team. So there's 4. There's 4 playoff teams. That could be it that makes it if 4 teams from the Pacific also make it. But let's say everything goes Dallas's way and only 3 teams from the Pacific are going to make it. There's a 5th spot open for the Stars to take in the Central Division. It's going to come down to Dallas and Colorado, and this lineup is going to have to beat Colorado's lineup. So, a good portion of how the season goes is going to depend on this guy right here, Ben Bishop. If Ben Bishop stays healthy and plays like he did when he took Tampa Bay to the Stanley Cup Final, Dallas could definitely be a playoff team. If Ben Bishop gets hurt like he seems to every single year and misses significant time, that's going to be a major problem for the Stars. Now, Anton Khudobin, I love. I wish Boston never got rid of him. I absolutely love this guy. He's a great backup goaltender. He can even start for a couple of weeks if you need him to and carry the team. At least play good enough to pick up some wins for a couple of weeks. But if Ben Bishop goes down and needs to miss like 6 to 8 weeks, Anton Khudobin is not going to be your starting goaltender for 2 months in the NHL. He's a very good backup, but I do not trust him to start for a significant amount of time like that. So Bishop is going to play a very important role on this team. On the back end, John Klingberg is their best defenseman. He's their number 1 guy, without a doubt. They need Lindell to play like a real top pair guy, offensively at least, because this is a very defensive defense core. At least the bottom 2 pairs are. So they need Klingberg. Klingberg's going to give you points. Klingberg can be, a 60. I think he could be a 60-point guy from the back end. He has a ton of offensive talent. They need Lindell to have a lot of offense as well, because you're not going to get it from either of the other pairs. Now, I would almost think that they should switch so you don't have both your offensive defensemen on the same pair. I would put Methot up with Klingberg and put Lindell with Johns, so then you have Klingberg offensive defenseman, Methot defensive defenseman, Johns defensive defenseman, Lindell offensive defenseman, and get that more spread out, because otherwise you are completely reliant on this top pair for any offense from the back end, and you'll get no offense from the rest of your defense, because Methot is a purely defensive defenseman, as is Stephen Johns. Certainly Roman Polak. I mean, you'll get single-digit points from him. And then Dylan Hetherington, we saw him a little bit last season, but not a ton. Again, he's a tough kid. He got in 3 fights in very limited number of games last year. I expect him to be a physical guy. He'll definitely drop the gloves, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of offense from him. So I would split this top pair of Lindell and Klingberg and spread your offense out a little bit, and then play them together either when you need a goal at the end of games or on power play situations, stuff like that. But for the most part, I'd like to see them spread that offense about, because overall this defense is very defensive. And then up front, your top line, I mean, this is an elite top line. This is an elite NHL top line. This line should put up a ton of points. After that, though, you have some question marks. Jason Spezza is 35. He's not the Jason Spezza of 10 years ago. Blake Comeau as a top 6 winger, I don't know. I like Blake Comeau. I think he's better suited as a third liner. I don't think you should go to him expecting 25 goals and top 6 points. It's probably not going to happen. Matthias Janmark, there's a bit of a, we'll see. He can be very good. He also may not be. There's a lot of unknowns in the rest of this line, offensive, forward group outside of the top line. This third line is going to be extremely important to Dallas. If this third line can put up points and they can have 3 scoring lines, they're going to have a very good chance of making the playoffs, and they're going to score a lot of goals. If this third line doesn't score, they're in trouble secondary scoring-wise. You're going to be completely reliant on that top line to score goals. That's not a good position to be in if you want to be a playoff team. You've got to have multiple scoring lines. And the second and third lines are both kind of question marks. And that third line, if they produce, can change this whole season for Dallas and really bump them up to be right up there with one of the best teams in the Central Division, if that third line can score. And then the fourth line's pretty good. You got Brett Ritchie, who's a banger. Shore's a pretty good player. Ellie's a good young player. Secondary scoring is my question with this team. If they can get secondary scoring, I think they'll be in pretty good shape. If they're completely reliant on that top line, they're in trouble. Defense is also an issue. This has been a problem for Dallas for, even when they were a playoff team going a few years back, they were a run and gun, high-scoring team, but they couldn't keep the puck out of their own net. Their defense is better than it was back then, I think, but they're lacking a little bit of star power, I think, on the back end. Klingberg is a star, no doubt, but other than that, they're certainly lacking some star power on the back end. We'll see what Hetherington looks like. We'll see what Honka looks like when he gets into the lineup. Polak, you know what you're going to get. Mathot, if he can stay healthy, he can be a very, very good defensive defenseman, as we saw in his days in Ottawa. But when you don't have Erik Karlsson on your side, you really don't stand out as much and look that great. And then Stephen Johns, you know what he is. He's a physical defensive guy, but he does make mistakes. So I think it's going to be tough for this team to make the playoffs. I think they have a chance, certainly, too. They have a pretty good lineup. And I think in most divisions, this team would be, they're competing for a playoff spot anyway, even in the Central. But I think they'd have a better chance if they were in any other division other than the Central. But they're in an absolutely stacked division this year. If only they were if they were in the Pacific, I'd be having them as a playoff team, no doubt. I think I would definitely have them ahead of Calgary. I'd have them. I'd have them right there with LA, and it would probably be a fight between those two for third place or second or third place in the Pacific. But they're a Central team. It's a much harder division, and you already have Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minnesota. There are so many good teams in that Central division. It's going to be tough. But this is a big year for Dallas. We'll see what they can do. I wish them the best for sure. I hope that they can get it together and really, make a playoff push. But they weren't able to last year, and I don't really see where they're significantly better in any facet of the game than they were last year. So we'll just have to see if individual players can play better. Nichushkin, Janmark, Como, Pitlick, guys like that, if they come out and have big years and really breakout seasons, then Dallas is in good shape. If those guys struggle, secondary scoring is going to be an issue, and this team's going to struggle. So that's what I've got on Dallas. Let me know what you think about the Stars down in the comment section below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.